So this is a really common thing that happens for people. When the statistically unlikely has already happened to you, it's no comfort for people to say like, oh, stuff like that really rarely happens. One of the things that really irritates me when like somebody says like, oh, that's a really rare illness. It happens to like 0.1% of the population. Do you realize that that's 1 million people? Right? Like when we're talking about this is really rare, it's not rare to the people who are living it. So that's sort of, it's statistically unlikely that the rest of your family members will all die in terribly horrendous, atypical ways in the next 2 weeks. Like that's unlikely to happen. That's not going to work when you're trying to talk yourself down from worrying about your people and all the things that can potentially happen. When the statistically unlikely has already happened, everything is possible. Yeah. You don't get to hide in that or soothe yourself in that. So going back to what we were talking about with guilt, right? Like if I tell somebody that I feel guilty for not being there at the bedside when my person died, and they come back with like, you did everything you could, you knew, she knew you were there. Like the same sort of thing applies here. If I say, I can't stop imagining all of my people dying in terrible ways and trying to plan for how I'm going to survive it in advance in case it happens. If you say that to the uninitiated, they're going to come back with like, that's unlikely, that's not going to happen, think better thoughts, all of this stuff. I don't take that approach. I'm going to take the approach of course you're doing that. Of course you're imagining the worst case scenarios and wondering what you would do and how you would survive. And if there's any point right now where you can intervene and prevent those imaginary things from happening. That is literally what our brains are designed to do. Our brains are designed, at least part of our brains, are designed to run disaster scenarios and plan in advance how we might meet those disaster scenarios. It is thinking of survival of the organism. It is way less risky to imagine terrible things with your brain and figure out how you might make that work out in your favor. It's way less risky to do that with your brain than it is with your body. And your brain, that part of your brain back here, wants you to survive. So when you are running disaster scenarios, and if I can't prevent it, how will I survive it? Your brain is trying to keep you alive by doing what it's designed to do, which is to find out how would I survive this? How would I survive this? How would I survive this? But what if this happened, right? So one, don't try to talk yourself out of it, right? It's not going to work. Two, notice what's happening. Oh, that's my brain. That is my brain doing its best to protect me and to make sure that no matter what happens, I will find a way to survive it. Thank you, brain. This is actually not the medicine that's needed right now, right? If we are going to imagine things that have not yet happened, can I imagine the best possible outcome? Can I picture all of the people I care about being safe and healthy until they're 107, right? If you are going to run made up images in your head, let's see if we can, if not imagine best case scenario, imagine neutral. Right? I'm not the biggest fan of Eckhart Tolle, but he does have something that I like. He says that anxiety is imagining a future you do not want and has not happened. Yeah, anxiety is imagining a future you do not want that has not happened. That is an immense use of resources, and it's not going to help you. It means recognizing what's happening and actively trying to shift your imagery, not by saying it's not valid, but by saying this is not what's called for at this time, right? So it's a really hard one. Anxiety for more loss, anxiety about more loss, anxiety about impending loss is honestly, I think, one of the hardest parts of grief, because we know what it's like to feel and we don't want to feel that again, right? So we come back to what's our sort of our running theme in today's time together is I cannot predict the future. And I hope that everybody is alive and well. I'm going to make sure that everybody gets their brakes checked and wears their seatbelts. Like, do the things that make sense to do, right? Wear your seatbelts, put batteries in your smoke alarms, like do the actionable things. And for the rest of it, I choose to hold a picture in my brain, in my heart, in my mind, and keep coming back to it to say, the people that I love, to the best of my knowledge at this time, are safe, and may they continue to be safe, right? What is the actual wish for the future that you have? And can you rest there? Even if it means saying something like, until and unless I learn otherwise, right now, my people are safe and I am safe. Right? Like, you got to make up the thing that you're going to replace that thought with, that image with, that acknowledges what you're trying to do, and give yourself something that helps you not vote for a future you don't want. Don't vote for a future you don't want with the images that your brain is making. So not useful. So not useful. Not only does it make right now freaking miserable for something that has not happened, may not happen, isn't arriving yet. If something does arrive and you've been rehearsing that disaster, you're going to be so depleted and so exhausted in your nervous system, and your adrenals are going to be like, I spent so much time rehearsing, I got nothing in me to rise to this. Yeah. For me, that one, like, don't rehearse future pain, because if something shows up, you'll be too tired to meet it with skill. Sometimes that's the only way I can get myself to stop rehearsing disasters. If you don't stop rehearsing this and replacing it with something neutral or move on to something else, you're not going to have the energy to meet disaster when it strikes. Sometimes I have to say that to myself, right? Whatever works, friends. Just don't try to talk yourself out of it. I see you. I see what you're trying to do. This is not the effective medicine at this time. We go back to our trauma tools, right? What are the things that we do when we're feeling emotional flooding? What are the things that we can do when we're feeling like really emotionally activated? You get out of your head and into your surroundings, not into your body, because your body is fragile and vulnerable. And we know these things, right? So what are the yellow things that I can name in this room? What are the soft things that I can hold on to? Is there a way that I can move my body that feels like I can move with this energy, right? Don't go into battle with disaster scenarios trying to solve all of them, because you will never run out of material to solve. Don't use your brain to solve your brain, right? Use your wisdom to vote for the future that you want. And also start building that trust in yourself that no matter what arises, I will take care of myself in the best ways I know how. I really love a replacement mantra for like that, because what we're doing in rehearsing and imagining all of those disaster scenarios, remember I said you're figuring out if you're going to be okay. If something bad happens, will I survive? Right? Prepare yourself for the road ahead. Don't try to prepare the road ahead for you. I said it better the first time, but we can't control what unfolds in the days ahead of us. What we do have control over, what we can say to ourselves is, no matter what happens, I have learned ways to care for myself, to ask for the help that I need, to recognize when I'm getting overwhelmed and do what needs to be done to fix that, to support that, right? The more you show up for yourself, the more you trust yourself to show up for yourself. That is how we prepare for the future, not by running imaginary shit that hasn't happened and may not. That was very, very wordy, but I hope it was helpful. Brains do their jobs too well sometimes, and we gotta make them do something else.